After playing 4 games last week, the Carolina Hurricanes had an optional skate for St. Patrick's Day, and no one can really blame them. These guys definitely need a break. But now with 4 days off, what is there to look forward to here when they play on Thursday against the San Jose Sharks?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkeyes. Also do some NHL coverage over at the Caller Times. Even been doing some baseball coverage here recently at Covering the Corner. Also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a good Tuesday show for you guys as we get to talk about the Hurricanes having an optional skate on Monday for St. Patrick's Day. You know, what were the groupings kind of looking like? What guys were needing a very much day off? And, possible, some updates on what could be going on going into the Thursday game against the San Jose Sharks. Meaning of which, if we do get Svechnikov and Orlov back, what does that mean for the, rosters for that day? And we do get some answers and hopefully some more from Rod Brind'Amour after their post-optional skate on Monday. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, for the optional skate, and good thing from Walt Ruff being there, and of course everyone else, the fact that while the Hurricanes have won 7 straight games, they're looking at 3 straight days of practices. I think for the Monday and Tuesday, they're both going to be optionals, and of course they're going to have the actual practice on Wednesday before they leave and stuff like that. So it's still giving these guys, time to take a break. Because you're talking about 4 games last week. They're on the same game here. They definitely need to deserve one. The fact that you got, between Sunday and Wednesday, you have 4 days off. You have some optional skates and stuff like that and some normal practices. So there are some guys who took the day off on Monday to kind of recover. And the guys that were off outside of, with the injured guys of Orlov and Svechnikov, these are the guys who actually took the extra day off as well. It would be Jackson Blake, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Jack Roslovic, and Jacob Slavin. Of course, it makes sense. A lot of these guys definitely need a break. And Rod Brind'Amour said it after practice too. Everybody that needed a day off took it off today. Tomorrow might be the same kind of thing. And it has been confirmed by Canes PR that Tuesday is also an optional skate for them, which makes sense. A lot of these guys are definitely tired. So guys that weren't there on Monday were Orlov, Svechnikov, Blake, Kotkaniemi, Roslovic, and Slavin. So what were the Lions groupings that were kind of there? So Hall, Aho, and Jarvis. Then you had Martin Uxtal and Stankoven, along with Robinson, Jankowski, and Jost. And then you had Gostisbehere, Chatfield, Walker, Morrow, and then you had Burns kind of just floating within himself with the defense, and he had Anderson, Kochekov in the nets. I would say don't read into a whole lot of this because it's just, they had certain guys that were there. That's what they were kind of rolling with. Obviously, you're going to have Ghost and Chatfield, Walker, Morrow together because those have been the defensive pairings since Orlov's been out, and they've been working really well together. Obviously, you're going to have that third line of Martin Uxtal and Jankoven together. And, of course, the fourth line of Robinson, Jankowski, and Jost. So, obviously, you're probably, part of your second line's out. Blake is out and stuff like that. So, you kind of have, a hodgepodge of, Hall with Aho, Jarvis. Like I said, nothing to read too much into that. It's just kind of that's what you're looking at right now with, an optional skate on Monday. You're probably going to have an optional skate Tuesday. And makes you wonder who's going to be there for that as well. So it's, like I said, it's one of those things where guys need a break. You just played 4 games last week. You have the rare 4 days off, and now you're locking through Monday through Wednesday of practices. Most likely the team is going to leave Tuesday, head out to California, have a practice Wednesday, and then get ready for Thursday. Most likely, I don't see why they would have them fly the day before, or they could have them leave Wednesday too after practice. It all really depends on what they think it might be best. For me, I'd say get them out there. You guys have practice Tuesday, leave after that, and then get right. You fly out there, you have the whole day Wednesday to do your practice, get ready, get used to the Western time zone, and then you got your game Thursday. That just makes sense, but it depends on how the Hurricanes want to do it. Either Tuesday or Wednesday, they're probably going to leave, and that's figuring out practices from there. But like I said, it's one of those things to not really read into the lines very much when you're talking about optional skates. It's like I said, it's just something for if guys want to be there, great. If not, if you guys need some days off, hey, take a day off. And they have been through a lot of hockey as of late. And the fact that you're looking at seven straight wins before you're going out to the West Coast, a lot of back-to-backs recently too. So these guys have been playing a lot of hockey. But it gives you perspective of the human element too of these guys. Like they're always playing hockey consistently. They're always, they're always go, go, go. And, these guys definitely need a break too. And like I said, more than well deserved for how they've been playing as of late. Full 60 minutes of hockey, basically since I would say Boston was probably the only game we didn't really get a full 60 minutes, but I mean, they played decently. But if you're looking at how they've been playing since the first Detroit game, the Tuesday before the trade deadline, they've been playing some stellar hockey as of late. And like I said, it's more than deserved for those guys to get a break and see where they're at from there. And now that begs the question of, with the break for some of these guys, and you're still waiting for Orlov and Svechnikov to come back, what's it necessarily mean for the Lions? Like, the team is rolling right now with 7 wins. If you get Orlov and Svechnikov back, where do you go from there? And I think that's a big question on everyone's minds that aren't within the locker room, because Rod and Tim Gleason and Jeff Daniels, like I think even like all those guys, Paul Schoenfelder and all of them, they kind of know what they might be planning on, because yes, Fetch and Orlov have been out, but you definitely want those guys back in lineup for for their skill sets. But at the same time too, I would say more so on the defensive side of things, what do you do? Because you're going to have an extra defenseman, you're going to have an extra forward, because like I said, you're going out to the West Coast. 2 guys are hurt. You're waiting for them to come back, but you got, now you're going to have extras. What does that particularly say when you're looking at possible 2 returns, but now you're going to have extras? Where do some of these guys fit in? I think that's where it's going to turn into a big question of who comes out of the lineup, how are the lines going to shape up and stuff like that. And it gives you, and which is understandable, because it's like, do you mess with the feng shui? Do you mess with the run that they've been on? Like as Crash Davis would say in Bull Durham, you don't mess with a winning streak. Of course, I'm having to paraphrase that, but it's kind of true. And we say, well, momentum doesn't carry from game to game, but if you're also on a winning streak, you really don't want to mess up the lines. You really don't want to mess up with the flow, the mojo, the good vibes that you got going on. But you got guys that you need to bring back in the lineup who you definitely want to have there. But at the same time, it's kind of like it does put you in that catch-22 of, do you re-add those guys back to the lineup? And while you do that, do you take the guys out, or do you stick with what you have and to be like, hey, we're just gonna have to see how this goes, how practice feels, and if just go from there. But it's definitely a tough situation where the whole team is flowing right now, and you got guys who've stepped up, who've been playing really well. Of course, this, like I said, this mainly is talking about the defensive side of things. I know Svechnikov, you have to bring him back in. So what would the lines look like if Svech and Orlov are set to come back from the Western Road trip? So stick around, guys, as I will be talking about what lines could potentially look like, and do we make some changes to the starting line? So stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, if we do get Svechnikov and Orlov back, what would those lines like? I guess, do you really want to mess with the Shui? Do you want to Bojo? The good vibes going right now for the Carolina. For me, obviously, if Svech comes back, you have to put him in the lineup. That's a no-brainer. You definitely need Svechnikov in there. So what would the forward lines look like? Well, probably going to be Svechnikov with Aho and Jarvis, most likely 3 that you're going to put together. Then you're going to be looking at probably Hall with Kotkaniemi and Blake. I mean, Hall and Kotkaniemi have been playing really well together. It just makes sense. Or you could go, I think that's because you definitely need Jackson Blake up there. Jackson Blake has been playing really well as of late. You got him in the top 6, in my opinion. You got to have him there. So then you're looking at Martinook, Stahl, and Jake and Stankoven. Fantastic third line. Can't go wrong with that. But then it turns into who's your fourth line? Well, it could be you could look at Robinson, Jankowski, and Roslovic as your fourth line. And then you just have Tyson Jost as your extra. Nothing against Josti. He's been playing really well. But if you're getting Svechnikov back, there's really no one else out of the forward core you can take out of. Could you swap Blake and Roslovic? Yeah, possibly. But I do like the combination of Roslovic with Robinson. You got speed on both sides, and you got the tall physicality of the two-way of Mark Jankowski in your fourth. So like I said, you got the Jordans with Stankoven. Stank has been playing really well with those guys. You keep them together. That means you got to have Hall and Kotkaniemi because their chemistry has been really great. And Jackson Blake is worthy of a top 6 spot at this point. Like, he's almost a lock for a top 6. That leaves Svech, Aho, Jarvis. There you go. Then you got your top end stars all together on the same line. So that kind of works out best. Now this is where it gets interesting when you look at the defense because you have Slavin Burns, you got Gostisbehere Chatfield, and then Walker Morrow. Now, if Orlov comes back, do you put him back in the lineup? And does that mean Scott Morrow goes back as a healthy scratch? Or do you send him back to Chicago? Because honestly, you don't really want Scott Morrow to be up here and just sitting in the press box. So if they bring Orlov back, then most likely you're gonna see Morrow go back to the Wolves in the AHL and see how how good he does down there. It's just, hey, things are coming up, but we might have to send you back. And then bring up Riley Stillman and have Stillman as the extra because you can do that with Stillman. And you don't want to do that tomorrow because you want the Morrow to develop. But if you ask me, and I know a lot of people, some might agree, some might not agree. I think even if you do have Orlov come back, I would be like, hey, glad you're healthy, but Scotty Morrow's been playing really well with us. The team has been moving and grooving for the last few games. We're on a 7-game heater. We really don't want to mess with what's going on right now. We might just have you sit in the box and have more and give you some extra time off to kind of recoup and if you're fully back, great, but maybe give you an extra day or so to rest and go from there. I would keep Morrow in the lineup. And another against Orlov. I like Orlov, but the way Morrow's been playing, it just makes sense to keep him in the lineup right now because the defense has been absolutely flying right now with the groupings and the fact that Walker and Morrow have been playing so great together. Like, you definitely want a guy. It's interesting to think that you have a new guy in Walker. It's almost like pairing up with a rookie in Morrow, and it's a new guy in the lineup helping out fill a new guy in the lineup. But Walker has been bought in, and been playing so well for the last couple months. It makes sense. But then you got the offensive power of Gostisbehere with Chatfield, who's a great two-way guy, and Chad's got unreal speed, and you got the defensive power. You got the offensive prowess, the stick handling of Gostisbehere, like that D pair is working together really well too. And then obviously you have Slave and Burns because they've just been together for so long at this point. So if you ask me, I would say just healthy scratch Orlov, and nothing against Orlov, but Morrow's been playing really well. He's making it very hard to take him out of the lineup. And, if you take him out of the lineup, then you would have to send him back to Chicago. And I think the way he's been playing, I say, hey, let's just keep riding this out and see how it goes. Maybe if he does okay against the Sharks, but, we want to get Orlov back in the lineup, then maybe you keep Morrow up for the back-to-back. You give Orlov the first half of the back-to-back, and then you look at possibly maybe put Morrow back in the second half. Don't send him back. Don't make him fly out of California after just getting there and go right to Chicago. Hey, if you come on the trip, stay through the California trip and come back, and we'll send you to Chicago. At least that way he's still out there. Or if you feel like you can't really take him out of the lineup, then you just keep him there. So that's how I would do it. I would say you just keep him in there because at this point, like, he's been playing so well. Why take him out of the lineup? Why mess with the groupings that have been together? But if you're on the YouTube version, or if you want to hit me up on socials at OneTrueZach on X or the Zach Martin on Blue Sky, or like I said, if you're on YouTube, leave me a comment. How do you feel about the defensive pairings? Do you keep the groups that are playing right now of Slave and Burns, Gostisbehere, Chatfield, and Walker Morrow? Do you keep those six together? And I'm not saying you have to. Burns doesn't move down or someone else moves up. It's like it has to be those pairings that we all know they're going to be. But do you keep those pairings, or do you put Orlov back in? That it's Orlov, Chatfield with Gostisbehere and Walker. So let me know what you think in the comments, and hit me up on socials. Like I said, OneTrueZach on X or the Zach Martin on Blue Sky. Let me know what you think. Do you keep Morrow in the defensive lineup, or do you take him out for Orlov when he comes back? For me personally, like I say, Morrow's been playing too great for me to take him out. He's made it really hard for him to take him out of the lineup. I think he has to be there. Forward core, obviously, it's going to be Svetch has to go back in. He's going to go to the top line. He's going to be with Aho Jarvis. They're going to have, like I said, Blake with Aho and Blake with KK and Hall. The Jordans with Dane Coven, and then it's going to be Robinson, Roslovic with Jankowski in the middle. It just makes sense. That's how I would do it. But defensive pairs of Orlov's back. That's kind of the bigger question mark. Like, what do you do there? Do you keep Morrow in? Do you take him out? Then if you do you just send him back to Chicago? Do you call up Riley Stillman because you can use him as your healthy scratch and not sit Morrow, because Morrow definitely needs more time to play and hone in his skills because he's still a prospect. So I don't know. It'll be interesting how all of that works out. So it'll remain to see how they play with all of that. So like I said, we did have the optional skate on Monday, and Rod Brind'Amour did meet up with media. But what did he say to them after the practice? So stick around as we'll jump into that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. There's nothing like watching basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, maybe even a celebrity setting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONAHL. It's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, after the optional skate on Monday, Rod Brind'Amour met with the media. So without further ado, let's jump into that press conference right now.
We'll find out. We'll get a couple more days and see where he's at. Obviously, if he doesn't practice with us, that'll be an indicator they probably won't. But I know he's tried it a little bit this morning, so he's getting better.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been asked now. Was he concussed at all?
No.
No concussion? Okay.
No.
Just an injury? Okay.
Is everything else just you guys got a lot of practices, so day off?
Yeah, we're not going to have much time the rest of the way, so everybody that was kind of needed a little something took it off today, and, tomorrow might be the same kind of thing, and then we crank it back up.
There's ways Scotty seems to be building his game, making kind of some tough decisions maybe in the future.
Well, I mean, I think he's played okay. I mean, we need, we're going to need extra bodies, and I think we've gotten pretty lucky all year to basically play 6 guys and piecing in some others. So I think it was really good for him to get some games, and not just a game here or there. Like, put a few together and show that that we can count on him. So I think that's been good.
Speaking of counting on guys, when you have the absence of a guy like Svetch, there's been a real gelling in the 12 guys you put out there. That's got to be heartening. You don't want situations like that to occur, but it's a way of being prepared.
Yeah, well, it's you're going to have injuries. We've dealt with it every playoffs, in that time for whatever reason, and I think guys have always stepped in and done well. And I think right now we're in that same boat where missing some key guys. I mean, Will's been out too almost the whole second half of the season, and that's a big loss too, the way he plays for us. So we've pieced it together, and I think that's what we were kind of doing right now.
What's the biggest contribution you think Taylor Hall has brought to the group since he's been?
Well, I think it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I think there was a lot of uncertainty, to be honest, where he was going to be at, and just because I haven't watched him much, and I think he's been kind of trying to find his way a little bit. I think we knew he was a former MVP, and then goes to a different organization, different role, different whatever. Now it's kind of rediscovering his game a little, I think, and I think he's even taking on a different responsibility. Like, he understands that maybe it's a little different now, and I think he's trying to reestablish what he is, and I think he's been really, really impactful. Not so much yet on the score sheet. Like, you haven't seen a ton of points, but every night he's around it and creating offense. And so I think it's still, to answer your question, it's still a little bit unseen what it's going to be, but I think it's looking real positive.
Well, what if you had to summarize in a sentence what makes your penalty kill so good over the whole course of your time here? What is it?
Well, there's a lot of things, to be honest, but I think you got good people in good positions that know what they're doing. I mean, that's no different than anything, really, but there's some strengths to our team, and we know what they are, and they're in that kind of mold. And I think, that's been a part of it. And then I think it's been real consistent with those guys. We've pretty much seen the same penalty killers in the same spots over and over and over. I think that helps.
How do you integrate new people into it? And also, I asked Sebastian and I asked Jarby, those guys haven't practiced the penalty kill all year. How do you get those guys up to speed?
I mean, they haven't practiced maybe live, but they get the practice with the video and the teaching. I mean, that's really the most important stuff, and they're smart enough guys to understand, how it works. They do it a little differently too. I mean, they have a little different flair than Jordo and Marty, how they go about it, but I mean, it's still, such a crucial part of the game, and they've been really good.
And how do you plug in? Like, Mark comes in and Jankowski, and he comes in and starts doing
he's done it his whole career, so, like I said, there's really not much variances in how killing is done. There's a couple of different methods, and that's about it. And then there's little tweaks, there's little details within that all, but you're either doing it one way or you're doing another. And we've done both over the years. And then it's all in the details on the rest. And I think when you bring a guy who's done it his whole career, okay, you're doing it this way, okay, I know what that is now. What are your details versus maybe another team? And that's what you have to pick up.
You mentioned Will Carrier a moment ago. Are you getting any closer to getting a timeline on him at all?
Unfortunately. Until you see him out there practicing with us, I wouldn't even bring him up. That's just the easiest way I always know, because that's how I do it. If he's not practicing with us, it's not really a thought.
Is this taking longer than you anticipated?
I don't think so. I think it was a really long-term kind of injury recovery, and that's just where we're at.
This recent stretch, you've talked about how you're finishing a lot more of your chances, but also on the other side, your goaltenders have seemed to elevate their game maybe from the prior months.
Yeah.
I mean, how impactful has that been for you guys?
Well, that's the game. I mean, it's every game. I mean, whether you win or lose, you go through it, and did you really get outplayed that much on the losses? And you go, look, well, that one, their goalie made that save, and then they go down and they get one, and now the game changes. You could have said that out the other night. There was that one flurry there where he gets a breakaway and a tap in, really, that he saves. What happens if that goes in? Well, the game changes. Everything changes. So that's why that position's so important.
As a player, did you take more pride in the power play or the penalty kill?
I don't know if I took more. You get more attention on the power play. That's for sure.
And you love attention.
But not really. But and you also get paid more if you score on a power play. For whatever reason. But they're both equally the same.
Are streaks gratifying as a coach? Do you put any stock in them? Is it meaningful that you won 7 in a row, or is it 8 out of 10? Does it matter one way or another?
Well, it matters because it matters to the end result, what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, like I say, whether you win 7 in a row, lose 7, it's always it's irrelevant today. Like, it's irrelevant going into that next game. It doesn't matter. But it kind of just, that's the storyline. But really, if you're just focusing on every day, then you're 0-0 every day you go into it. So what you do is you look back and you'll say you could have 2 or 3 of those streaks. As long as you play okay the rest of the way, your season's going to be pretty good. So you do want, obviously, have them. But we don't focus too much on it.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, for that. And it's very interesting when you hear about Rod talk about, a lot of stuff they went over in that one, and the fact that you're looking at, Andrei Svechnikov, he's out, not concussed, but they're still trying to give us some priority to that to see, how he is. Dmitry Orlov's only for him to come back, talking about, Scott Morrow, and I was like, hey, he's playing well, he's getting some meaningful minutes. It's not just a game here and a game here. He's actually getting time, but what does that mean moving forward? Who really knows? And then it's just, you're looking at the winning streak where it matters, which is good, but that's not relevant for today. What's it going to be for the next game? And I see where Rod's coming from. It's like, it's great to have a winning streak because it matters to the guys, matters to the front office, but that's a game by game thing. That's not, you don't focus on the off days. So it's just, you try to have that mentality of, you appreciate the winning streak, but now it's on to the next game. It doesn't matter what you've done the last 7 or the last 8 or 10 or however it is. Just, you have to go to each game, and you got to appreciate the winning streak, but also be like, hey, the next one, the next game is what matters, and winning streak or not, it's just you got to take one game at a time, and that's the kind of mentality you have to have when you're looking at 15 games left in the regular season, and now you're looking, the playoffs are not that far away. And it's crazy too that the California trip that the Hurricanes usually go on is so late this year. Because before it's always towards the first half of the year, but this year it's just crazy where you have the West Canadian trip already done for the state fair, and then all of a sudden then you get the West Coast trip. You're talking like middle, like towards the end of March, and you're got 15 games left, so it's very crazy how you're looking at it. But for this trip coming up, it's like you've won 7 in a row, but can you keep it going? And for me, it's the Hurricanes are 14, 15-1 on the road. This is where it's like, okay, you want to be a good playoff team, you need to win on the road. And I think these 3 games coming up are going to be very huge. If you take 5 out of 6 points, great. Then you did a very good job on the road trip. If you go 6 for 6, even better too. If you had to drop one, I could maybe see the Kings, but we'll go into more of those previews on Wednesday's show. But this is where you're at. If you're the Carolina Hurricanes, your winning streak is great, but how are you going to be on the road? This is going to be a very, very big test for them. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that goes. But, guys, that will wrap up a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, why don't you go check out Locked On NHL Podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter, with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_. Hurricanes, I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin. I have link trees in both my bars where you can check out all of my articles at thehockeywriters.com for the Carolina Hurricanes coverage. For anything AHL-wise, it's theCalderTimes.com. If you do want to check out my baseball content, coveringthecorner.com, which talks about the Cleveland Guardians. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes. subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit thumbs up if you like the show as well. Share with all other Kings to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.